Welcome to Two Therapists Talking. The hope for this podcast is to talk about important issues related to couples and individuals who are struggling in their lives with many different issues. I'm David Thompson, a marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Sherie Christensen, marriage and family therapist. Please join us as we explore these issues together, and we hope you will learn and be enlightened along the way. Come find us at twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast. Hello and welcome back to Two Therapists Talking. I'm Sherie.
And I'm David.
And today we are going to talk about a favorite subject of mine, and that is accelerated resolution therapy. So this is a tool that both David and I are trained in, and it is similar to EMDR if you're familiar with EMDR.
Probably you're going to be way more familiar with EMDR.
Right. It came out of EMDR.
Right. So it's newer.
Right. So it's, the way I like to describe it is it's like EMDR on steroids. It's more effective, it works faster, and it's because it's more directed. So I guess first let's back up, and if you're saying, what is EMDR, what is ART, I have no idea what you're even talking about.
Why would I use it? When would I use it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what even EMDR is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trained in EMDR, but David is. So You want to tell us a little bit about what EMDR is?
Yeah, so real simply, it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and it's for really distressing events to sort of allow your body to calm down when you think about these events and not have the negative side effects anymore. So when you think about something that's really traumatic, like, a car accident or a shooting or PTSD type events, we discovered a way to calm the body down. And this all started with Francine Shapiro, who she was distressed and moving her eyes back and forth. And I can't remember if it was a dog playing fetch in a park or a tennis match or something. I can't remember, but she was a researcher and felt better and was able to kind of go back and say, wait, why am I feeling better? And the only difference was she was moving her eyes back and forth. And she said, surely moving your eyes back and forth wouldn't make you feel better, right? And so she started testing this idea. And that's where the eye movement movement was born.
The eye movement
movement, where we don't even know why it works the way it does.
Right.
We've talked about REM sleep and different theories, but we don't know. But there is something calming and soothing in your brain, moving your eyes back and forth while holding something else. Almost like your brain's got to do both at the same time.
Right.
And it does something to your brain when you do that.
Yep.
And so EMDR was really successful. I mean, when it first started,
a ton of studies on it.
A ton of studies, like probably more research on EMDR for trauma interventions than anything else, and probably everything else.
Yeah. Yep.
And it works so well that, the Department of Defense will pay for veterans and people coming out of war to get EMDR. It's kind of the go-to, and was for a really long time. If you've read The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, it's a really good book, and he talks about EMDR. I mean, if you read the book, you will want to do EMDR. I've had so many clients that have read this book and said, I need EMDR.
And they said, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do here. Yes, it's a very, very effective treatment. And so what happened is with ART is a woman named Lainey Rosenwig was doing EMDR, and she did it a lot, right? That was kind of her go-to and what she did with therapy. And she began kind of adjusting and, if we do it this way, or if we kind of really focus on these things, and if I can guide and direct the client toward this and this, then it actually is a lot more effective. And she actually went to the EMDR gods. I don't know who, who all, but I think it was
Gods? Gurus, maybe?
Yes, the gurus of EMDR. She actually went to them and said, hey, like, I'm doing this and I've kind of developed this way of doing it that is a lot faster. We can direct people through it and they get through it and they clear things a lot faster. And they looked at it and they said, okay, what you're doing is not EMDR. So you either need to stop doing it and calling it EMDR, or you
Right.
need to like call it something else and just do
Kinda
something else.
Do your own thing, yeah.
Yeah. And so, of course, she's like, well, then I'm going to do my own thing because this is clearly working very, very effectively. So it is a more guided and directed protocols, oftentimes, that you're going through, and that helps you get through it more quickly and effectively and efficiently. So that's kind of why I say it's like EMDR and steroids. Because it's more directed to kind of get you through the issue quicker and more effectively, kind of clears all the different areas out. So when people ask me, okay, well, so what is ART? How does that? It's an eye movement treatment, just like EMDR. So as you're doing the treatment, as we're asking you to think about different things, you are going to be moving your eyes back and forth. And most ART people that do that, they'll do that with their hand. So you're following their hand back and forth. And so the process is to go through traumatic events. It's most effective for traumatic events, trauma that you've experienced in your life. You can absolutely do stuck concepts as well. That have been stuck somehow in your brain. You can work through those kinds of things. A lot of times people do them around like complex trauma, like a core belief that you have because of that trauma. But they've used it for anxiety and depression, and have found that it's very effective for those as well. So it's a tool that's used for a lot of different things. A lot of like stuck spaces that you're trying to move through and get through on the other side. So you will be thinking about whether it's a stuck core memory or belief or a traumatic event. You will have times in the session that you are following the hand back and forth and thinking about the actual event. Sometimes you'll be thinking about like what it means. Sometimes you'll be thinking about where you feel the distress in your body and working through that. So you're going to be doing all of those things following the hand back and forth in these sets of eye movements. The therapist just guides and directs you through that process, but you're actually the one. So a lot of people are like, oh, is this like hypnotism or something like that? No, it's not. You're the one in charge. So the therapist is guiding you through the different pieces that need to happen, but you are the one in your brain that's coming up with those different pieces. You're the one that's creating the imagery that's going to release or heal or dissipate the distress that you're feeling.
Right.
You're the one that tells the therapist, yeah, I need a little more time with that, or I need to work through this part more. You are going to be the one that's guiding and directing that. So you are not out of it and you're going to wake up at the end of the thing
Right.
and hopefully have it. You're an integral part of the process.
And the cool thing about the process really is, it's generally really brief. You'll move through things very quickly, and you don't have to talk a lot about it. This isn't something where,
Yes.
Maybe if you're used to therapy, it's like, I'd like to talk about some of these things or work through them, but I'm afraid to. I don't want to. I resist it. Well, the neat thing about this is you can keep everything just in your head, follow the instructions from the therapist doing the ART,
Right.
and it will move. So
Yes.
talk about non-invasive. I mean, you don't have to say a word if you didn't want to.
Right.
You're just indicating you're ready and follow the instructions and off you go. So for those reasons, it can be a really appealing
Yes.
treatment for distressing events that are just hard to talk about
Yeah.
and address directly. So,
Well, especially if you think about like pre-EMDR, the option was almost like a desensitization type of a thing. So you
Right.
would come into therapy and you would just talk about the situation and relive it in therapy like over and over and over again to hopefully like kind of calm down some of those, distressful emotions and sensations and things like that. So when we talk about like an ART sessions, it's so much faster.
yeah.
It is. So if I have something like a car accident versus like when we talk about complex trauma, when you've had the same thing happen a lot, whether that's childhood sexual abuse or whether that's a betrayal in a relationship, it's more, there's more that you can do there, right? But if it's like a one-stop, shop, I got in a car accident and I'm scared to drive now,
Right.
right? Really, in just a couple, 1, 2, 3 sessions, like you're completely done with it.
Yeah.
And the thing that I love so much about this is people come in, they're always skeptical. They're like, I'm going to move my eyes back and forth and then I'm going to feel better
And
from my trauma.
rightly so. You hear it
Right?
and you go, how does that have anything to do with
Yes. And I will tell you, when I started doing it, like basically every session, my jaw was on the floor. I'm like, it does. It still works. I can't believe it worked in this situation and this one and this one. Like, it blows your mind.
It just works. Yeah.
It just works. It's somehow a process of reprogramming the mind where literally you still remember the event, but if you think about like something that's really traumatic, if you've had an experience like that that's really traumatic and you think back on it and you can like feel your heart rate start to go and you just feel some distress in your body.
Which, by the way, that's how you know what would be a good
Yes,
target is if
exactly.
your body reacts to thinking about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And some people, it's so traumatic to like think back and try to go back and relive that in their mind that they just can't even, like, I can't do that. That's just too much. Again, really good thing to bring in to do ART with, because we can take those memories and those experiences and remove the distress. So you can still remember that it happened, even horrific things, but you don't feel distress. Like remembering it feels like remembering you went to the grocery store
Right.
yesterday. Like, oh, I went to the grocery store and I got some stuff, and it was like, okay.
Hard to believe, but we're not just saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, when we do this process, we ask you to rate the experience at the beginning and then again at the end.
Yep.
And this is your own admission of, well, okay, it started at 9 or 10, 10 being the most. And at the end, we ask again, how does it feel? And it's like, oh, well, 2 or 1 or it's gone.
Yes.
And so it sounds almost too good to be true, but it's just exactly
It's
like
not.
Sherry's describing. Yeah.
It really isn't. And that's what is so amazing about it, is it is not too good to be true. And it really does. I ever have a client where at the end of the session, we're not
Right.
down from a 10 to a 1 or a 2.
Right.
And if we're not, it's always because there's another event that was distressing or another concept that is mixed in that we just need to do art on that too.
Right. Starting somewhere and it goes somewhere else. That's kind of common, but that's okay. That's okay. I mean, you mean all of this isn't going to be solved in one session? Or you mean I might have to come back and work through some more things?
3. But that's the really, really cool part. And I'll have people that come in for one thing and then they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I want to do it for this, and I want to do it for this, and I want to do it for this, because it helps so much. Now, when we talk about complex trauma, like say you've been sexually abused for a long time, or say you've had a lot of betrayal in a relationship or something like that, then we can do quite a number of sessions, right, of art sessions where we're looking at different aspects of the abuse. But it's still much faster than any other type and much more effective than any other type of therapy. So when you're doing it, we don't have to go through every single event
Right.
that you've ever experienced in your life. This actually will take things more conceptually, and it will clear kind of the conceptual trauma around it. So you can clear chunks of things. I have a fabulous client that I've been working with for a couple of years doing mostly art, and she has an extremely traumatic upbringing and life, and it's just spectacular, the results of being able to work through so many of these things. And it's really cool because, her body will get done and it'll do like some really, really hard stuff. And then it'll be like, okay, I'm just going to take a break for a little bit. And you're like, okay, I feel like we might be
You feel like you need
done.
it. I mean, it's surprising. It's like you went through an emotional marathon.
It really is.
You're
it really
exhausted
is. And
when you're done.
I always tell clients, I said, you can have a couple of different results, but the biggest thing is to make sure you take care of yourself for the next little bit.
Yeah.
So sometimes people will come out of a session and it could be the same person with different issues. Sometimes they can come out feeling totally elated, like they've got a massive amount of energy because their body's so happy to have shed this big thing. Sometimes they come out and they're like, oh my gosh, I need like a 4-hour nap,
Right.
So making sure that you have some space to take care of yourself and what your needs are after it, because it really is quite a bit of emotional work that you're going to do. But it is just thrilling to see the results. Like, this is probably my favorite thing to do in therapy, because of the shifts that happen, and they're so big in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I think that's the best part. I mean, at the end of the session is like really good, but then the best part for me, I think, is they come back and I'm sort of holding my breath. So how's it going when you think about this?
Yes.
What do you feel? And when they're like, it's fine. It's like nothing.
Yeah, why are we even talking about this?
That's the best part. It's like, oh yes, because it tends to last. It almost sounds like, well, maybe you have to do this over and over and over on the same thing.
Nope, it's gone.
Not usually. It really has a lasting impact.
Yeah, unless there's a different angle to it that needs to be addressed, like, it is just gone.
Yeah, when we're talking about single events,
right?
It's
Single
really
events,
good for that.
it's
And then
just
other ones, a little
gone.
more complicated, but still very effective.
Yeah.
And it's just a different kind of a process.
Yeah, it's just a little bit different. Yeah, it's a different process of going through it. But yeah, really, really neat stuff. I have groups that that have approached me, and that do like first responder stuff. So they're doing a lot of those isolated event type of a thing, PTSD types of things, and they only will take clients, or only will take therapists that specialize in ART, because it's just so effective.
Yeah.
So really cool stuff. Yes, you do have to relive the moment in your mind. And sometimes that's a little bit tricky for people, but what I tell them is you only have to do it for a few, like, it'll only feel this way for a few minutes for the rest of your life.
That sounds not so bad. And
Yes.
you don't
and
have to
only
talk about
for
it.
30 seconds at a time.
Yeah.
And you don't have to talk about it. In fact, again, coming from a typical therapy background, you might think, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to kind of see it in my mind, and I have to tell you all the things that I'm going to have to sit in that trauma for that whole space of time. No, literally, you're going to be in it, seeing it for 30 seconds, and we want you to move very quickly into clearing the distress. So there's even times when I will tell clients, like, okay, hang on. Like, we can talk about this later, but I actually want to move you through it and clear the distress now.
It's going to change what you have to say about this in just a few minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And absolutely we can do that, and especially if it's a super, super distressful thing, people are used to, I'm supposed to come into therapy and tell you about it, but then I have to sit in distress for this whole time while I'm telling you about it. And I'm like, nope, I want you to have 30 seconds of it, and then I want to work on I want to clear it. So we're going to do 30 seconds and it's going to be cleared. And then we'll go back into it and see a little bit more, and then we'll clear a little bit more, so that you don't have to sit in massive amounts of distress for long periods of time.
Right.
Which is really, really nice because there's a lot of really awful things that people have had to go through. And to be able to move through it and know, like, hey, this doesn't have to take over the rest of my life. And it doesn't have to be this massive thing that's causing me a lot of distress for forever is a really nice thing.
Yeah, definitely. If your interest is piqued at all, you definitely can do some research on this. There's a lot of research out there, just mostly because it's so similar to EMDR.
Yeah,
which
and
has
they've done
lots of research.
But they have actually done quite a bit of research with accelerated resolution therapy as well. So you can look into that. And if you're looking for a therapist in your area that does it, you can go to acceleratedresolutiontherapy.com and there's a button that you can click to find a therapist that does it in your area. So it really helps. This is, again, it's great with PTSD, with big trauma events. It's also fabulous with grief, to work on kind of closure around different grief things that happen, depression, anxiety. It's all very well studied with that, core belief, places that you're stuck with core beliefs, a lot of that stuff. Good visualization tool, and it's amazing. It's really cool to see because you are directing it, everyone's mind directs different imagery around the event and around like creating closure and peace around it, and it's really cool. I love seeing what people come up with, what their minds come up with, and it's always really funny because they'll be like, "What? Where did that come from in my brain?" And I'm like, it makes perfect sense. Look at how this made perfect sense. It was exactly what your mind needed to provide the closure. And it didn't come from me. That just came from you because your brain is amazing. So look into it. We highly recommend it. And I could probably talk about this for another 3 hours. So David is like, "Kate, we're good. We're good on time here. We're good on time." So
this is good. She loves it, and it's a great thing. So
look into it if you are interested, and I hope that it can bring you peace in some of the things that you've had to experience in your life.
Thanks for joining us. We hope it was helpful.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Two Therapists Talking. We look forward to sharing more conversations with you. Connect with us at twotherapisttalking.com or email podcast@twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.